And Sid, we're really excited to have you. Can you just, Danelle, do you want to go first? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to join the EAC and what you're interested in doing.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for having me on the squad. I moved to Radnor in August of 2019. My partner is in law school at Villanova. So we had been living in the city of Philadelphia, and I actually commute sometimes to Reading for work. And I work for Tower Health, and we own 7 hospitals in the area. So this is a more central location for them. We actually own the urgent care on Conestoga Road that you probably drive by.
Yes.
Knowing that he had to go to campus every day, I was like, we have to move closer to the campus. And we have loved it. We are renting. The apartment building's great. We really like the access to the trail behind us. The park is really nice. We don't have kids, but our friends' kids come over. I am the director of physician acquisitions for Tower Health. So I work with purchasing and integrating private practices or things like St. Christopher's Hospital for Children and their physician enterprise into Tower Health, and work a lot with physician contracting as well. I have an undergraduate degree. One of my majors is in environmental studies, and I have a master's in health administration. So trying to get a little bit more involved in something that I was very passionate about in undergrad. I actually started the environmental club that they have at the school still to this day, and it was really fulfilling to me, but my career kind of took me in an entirely different direction. So happy to be involved again.
Very cool. Thank you. That's really exciting. And I actually think environmental issues and health have a lot of really important intersections. So it'll be good to have your expertise in the group. Sid, do you want to give us just a quick intro?
Sure, happy to do so. Matt, I like that last point. Just to give credit to Al Gore, who's of course our savior in this space. At the end of the day, the Earth will be just fine. It's the people that have a problem. Mm-hmm. So that's what I like to remember when we're doing this and what the point is. Happy to be part of the group here. I've been a Radnor resident for about 7, 8 years. My primary work is in this space. So not that I'm looking to get paid from projects that we uncover here. That's not the kind of work that I do. But I do look at municipal, commercial, large-scale sustainability projects around the spheres of clean energy, clean water, agriculture that's more regenerative, and finding ways to convert waste into value. So everything I look at, I do it from an investment perspective. So I look at how we can spend money to develop facilities or infrastructure that have environmental outcomes and generate economic returns. As that's my profession, I saw this opening on one of these Radnor blotters I get, and thought it would be great to see what's happening in my community, and if there are things that I'm seeing in other communities and other municipalities, what can we do here at Radnor at home that the other communities are doing that makes us more environmentally sustainable. So that's a primary interest. No real agenda, just wanted to slide in, not disrupt things, just figure out where you guys are going, where you're trying to head, and see if I can bring in commercial resources to make our impact as a group larger than maybe the resources that we have at our disposal today.
That's great. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear that. Thank you, Sid. Colleen, do you mind giving a quick overview of your background? You're not new to the group, but just for the sake of these guys.
Yeah, I'm actually a real estate and construction attorney. I went to Villanova Law School.
Awesome.
So I worked for Brandywine Realty for a number of years, which is probably one of the biggest landlords in Radnor. So that's basically my background, and very excited about environmental change. Hopefully we will get a new president, but that's not going to be political. And that's sort of my goal. I mean, what I've done on this committee that I've been here was really the solar panels. We're trying to promote that. And there are a few township buildings that need new roofing. We want to see if they would incorporated solar panels on the township buildings. I think there are 3 buildings that need help. And my other project has been banning plastic bags, which we went as far as we wrote an ordinance. We were ready to present it. And then the governor of the state literally banned a ban on plastic bags. The lobbyists for the plastic companies pretty much took over, and you literally couldn't pass a ban. Even if you passed it, you weren't allowed to enforce it. And that got extended through, I think it was last summer, and it literally got extended again. I just went and checked it. You can't.
Oh, did it really? I didn't hear that. Oh, that's so depressing.
I know. I was going to bring it up today. I'm like, why don't we, launch this plastic bag ordinance one more time? You can't do anything till at least July of 2021 or 6 months after Governor Wolf lifts any stay-at-home order.
Yeah.
So it's way off again.
Yeah. That's too bad. And it's, with everything, with, all the craziness this year, I'm sure plastic bags are the last thing on people's minds, but it's still an issue. None of these things go away. So,
Right.
yeah, that's hard. Thank you, Colleen. I appreciate that. And I'll just give a little background. I've been with the EAC for a number of years, as we were talking about. I'm interested in everything, climate change in particular, but also, sort of the health of our waterways and clean air and, recycling, lots of other things. And it's been a really interesting journey. We've gotten an opportunity to work on a lot of really cool things with this group. The downside is we don't have any power. It's really just an information sharing group, and we don't have a ton of resources. We did write a grant a few years ago to get some money for stream study equipment, which was a lot of fun. We put a little program together to teach elementary school kids how to go into local creeks and figure out what's living in them, kind of pull out muck and sort through the muck for bugs and look at it under a microscope and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun to do that. That was really the highlight for me in some ways, as well as getting the Ready for 100 group up and running, which is largely due to efforts by Sarah Pilling and others. And in the old days, when I first joined, we were sort of at the tail end of some work with the township to reduce emissions by doing green power purchasing and by kind of updating the vehicle fleet. Those are things that are definitely still worth pursuing. A lot of those initial agreements, I think, have expired at this point, so it's probably worth revisiting at some point. And that's, there's now that with Ready for 100, there is a reinstatement of what used to be called the Green Team, which is sort of a liaison between the township and the EAC to talk about, purchasing and stuff like that. There is some power there where we can definitely make a difference. And this is probably an awkward time to say this, but I'm planning to step down from the EAC in January. So it may be time to think about who else wants to be chair. Jim is currently the vice chair, and I haven't spoken to him to find out if he's interested in serving as chair, but I think that's something that could definitely be worth a discussion. And really all I do is kind of set the agenda and make sure everybody remembers to come to the meeting. I'm not doing a very good job of that this month, but it's definitely something that has been a lot of fun, and I've really appreciated the opportunity to serve with everyone. Why don't we go ahead and start touching on the agenda a little bit. I was hoping Sarah would be here to talk about item number 2, which is the development regulations. But Sid, why don't I kick it over to you, if you don't mind, and talk about sort of, you mentioned, kind of investment ideas and ROI around environment. I wonder if you could just kind of talk broadly about the framework that you use to think about those things, and how do we, one of the challenges, and I promise I'll stop talking in a second here, but when we've dealt with purchasing with the township, we've always had to kind of come at it with this is going to be cost neutral argument, or at least this is, it's not going to cost a lot of money. With prices on things like solar power dropping, I wonder if that calculation is starting to change a little bit. Are those things you can speak to?
Happy to, on many fronts. I think solar is the way for that to work for the township. I think, like you said, large scale solar plants are getting cheaper and cheaper to build. They're cost competitive with other sources of fossil fuel generation. For Radnor to the township to sign up to a project to take a certain amount of energy kind of depends on how much energy we use as a township, not on the per building level, but as a municipality. And then we can get a portion of a larger solar system that's already being built. So there are probably ways to put our hands up, say we want to sign up for a certain amount of power. Here's our usage, and who's got a plant that's willing to take us on as one of the potential buyers. I know our credit rating is through the roof, right? We just refinanced a bunch of bonds that they got a AA rating. So we should have great credit and great ability to do that. I just don't know if anyone here has done the exercise of figuring out how much power, and I'm not saying that critically, but just, has the township figured out how much power the township itself uses,
Yep.
the timing of the power usage, and how they match up with the solar power plant. But you're right. Today's a good day to go out and try to do that.
That's great. Let me, if I could interrupt a second, Sid. So the Ready for 100 group is bringing in a consultant to start totaling those things up a little bit and get a sense of our energy footprint, as well as look for some areas where there might be opportunities for, for efficiency. I think they're really looking for low-hanging fruit right now, such as, installing smart thermostats in some of the buildings that don't get a lot of usage and stuff like that. But that might be a chance to kind of make a connection there and figure out if there are ways that EAC could guide that discussion.
That's always the challenge, which is people have to spend money to make money, right? And Colleen, you nailed it when you said there are ways you can get the benefits of these installations without having to pay an upfront money, right? You can literally pay for it out of the energy savings. So you can do that across the board on energy efficiency and on energy generation like solar. We just need to find the right vendors that are willing to do that to us. And we leverage a township's credit without really creating an obligation for the township to go out and do that. So it takes work to raise your hand and tell the market that you are out there looking for these things. And so, I'm sure that if we made an effort, we could go find those vendors that are willing to do that. And I have a fair amount of those in my Rolodex that I can call as well.
That's helpful. Thanks. Is your typical approach to put out an RFP, or do you really have to kind of dig into it and proactively call companies and say, hey, we're looking for this. Do you want to bid?
Yeah. So no, I don't like to put out RFPs nor respond to them. I've done both. It's a lot of paperwork, obviously. I think you can go out to 2 or 3 vendors and get a competitive bid process just through that, right? You don't need to scour the world to find the right answer. So if we can demonstrate a competitive process, maybe focus on vendors that are closest to us geographically. So we're at least trying to build on the community aspect of it. And I think we can maybe we can get away without doing an RFP process. And then if we're not asking for township funds to spend money, maybe some of the RFP requirements go away, right? Usually it's an RFP because you're looking to spend $5 million to build something. Right. If I'm asking for no money, why are you sitting on an RFP?
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Those are clever, right? It's a little bit cute. So you have to make sure we'll have to work in concert with the township to make sure that we're not. I'm sure there's some lawyer there whose job it is to make sure that people don't do stuff like this. So we just have to make sure that it's kosher from their perspective.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay. You've mentioned a couple of other areas, water, waste, agriculture. Are those all sort of, do those all get equal weight in your mind in terms of areas where work is needed, or do you tend to focus on one area more than the others?
Yeah, so it depends very specifically on what the township's struggles are, right? If we had pristine water everywhere and our water quality was of the highest standard and we had no ponds with flesh-eating algae, then I'd say there's no water problem. We luckily don't suffer from drought, so building a desalination facility in Radnor doesn't seem to make sense, especially today. So it depends on what the struggles are, and then there are certain things you can do that have economic impact and things you can't, right? Cleaning up a pond isn't usually something that has an ROI on it, right? So that those are often things that we really want to do, but are really challenging to do. Kind of like repairing windows in your house. It's really expensive and the economics don't really work.
Have you followed the stormwater management discussions at all?
I've looked at those. Those are, and Colleen probably knows this from her real estate background. I find that to be more in urban environments, denser urban environments, where we are looking to take a grassland and make it into a build something there, and reducing the area for the water to run off into or be soaked back into the water table. So that's, we can aid developers in finding ways to restore wetlands in order for them not to have to build retention basins, for instance.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And to your point about water quality, we do know based on surveys that have been done in the area that in the existing streams in Radnor, there's a lot of silt, there's a lot of erosion, there's a lot of pressure on the waterways from storm runoff, and it's getting worse every year. And I'll just editorialize a little bit. We talk about this every other month or so. The Stormwater Committee is sitting on a lot of money that has yet to be spent to fix up some of these issues. I don't think it's going to be simple by any means, but I know there's a lot of frustration over trying to get those things done. Hi, Margie. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Sorry. Honestly, without a structure in my life, I just let too much go by. I haven't missed any classes. I've taught all my classes, but I'm really sorry. I have no excuse.
No, not at all. I'm glad you could join us, and now we have a quorum, so we're official. And we've been just introducing Donnell and Sid and welcoming them to the team. And Sid's been talking a little bit about his work in environmentally related investments. Very interesting stuff. And I keep interrupting you, so please continue. Waste, agriculture, anything else you want to talk about?
Sure. And just tell me how many hours I have. I think again, I want to slide into what you guys are already doing. I don't want to create a lot of new initiatives unless they're useful. I think on the energy side, whatever we can do around energy efficiency at the municipal buildings that we have, those are our resources, right? So I think about them as our resources that are maybe wasting energy where we can find energy savings in, right? Are there places where we have land that we can turn it into some kind of beneficial use, whether it's you can go to the ag side, make it a farm, make it a hydroponic farm that can grow throughout the seasons, whether you can make it into enough land for a solar array, for instance, Colleen, to find solar on land rather than on rooftops. I'm not sure. So it depends on what our resources are at Radnor.
Yep.
On the waste side, I think the shopping bag idea was a great one. And, if you're doing something that gets the governor's attention, I feel like it's, you're doing something good. So well done. Another aspect around waste is that waste can be used. I mean, it's a commodity, but often there are people who do better things with waste than others, right? There's the contractor you have that takes your leftovers and dumps it in the first bin he has, and there's the other guy who takes it to the C&I demolition site where you're supposed to take it, right? So if we can find waste haulers or contract with waste depositories where they take waste and reuse it for beneficial uses, we should try to find those. It'd be great to do a better job of separating organic waste, which actually have fuel in them, and taking them to places where they use that fuel and where you feel like, even though we're creating waste streams, there's something beneficial being done out of it. And maybe we have to do more work to separate it, but we would get more benefit for the environment out of what we do. So things like this, I mean, we can, again, if once I know what the townships, what we struggle with, what our resources are, what people's initiatives are, we can focus on both a consumer approach and a sort of business approach and tackle them.
That makes a lot of sense. And you've touched on a lot of themes that have been very much part of our discussion. Colleen, I see you nodding your head. Do you want to expand on any of those things?
Well, it's especially about the whole trash issue. We found out that most of what we put in for recycling doesn't get recycled. It gets burnt down in Chester. And we wanted to do some advisory to tell people what is recyclable and what isn't. And pretty much as far as the last time we looked into it, it's only aluminum cans. Everything else, most paper is not being recycled. And Radnor is actually paying an exorbitant amount of money because we're paying I think it's Republic, it removes our trash, to take everything, and then they take things to be recycled and they say, oh, it doesn't qualify, and then we have to pay to take it off the conveyor belt and bring it somewhere else to have it burnt. So trash has been is a huge problem with Radnor. We tried to delve into very deeply, what does it cost? Can we save money by going with somebody else? And pretty much we didn't get to any great resolution on that.
And Colleen, if I can step in, our deficit for the last 3 years for trash and recycling is $300,000.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for improving efficiency there.
Well, yeah, because
Quite
the
apart from
township, at the commissioners meeting last week, when they presented the budget, the proposed deficit for 2020 is $1.7 million. For 2021, with taking money out of the fund balance, which is the rainy day fund, they still anticipate a loss of $1.5 million, and they're talking about raising the stormwater fee, the sewer fee, and imposing higher taxes. It's time to do something.
I mean, maybe Sid, maybe, I don't know if you know of any other vendors. Like we were saying, we needed to get a proposal from someone who could do this cheaper or sort of handle the recycling better.
Well, Bozensky is a dual stream recycler. And when he presented at St. David's Church, their, I don't know what they call it, their creative care committee, at that time, what I heard him say was a tractor trailer full of aluminum cans he was holding till he could find a market for it. Republic is a single stream, and it comes in and it goes out. So there's no opportunity to seek a market. And I think Bozensky was only accepting in recycling what they knew they had a market for. Now, I've been talking to the Sun, the Moon, and the Stars, and Lisa, as of this week, of how Radnor can get a handle on this. But I don't think they want to do anything about it. This is very hard-nosed. I don't think they want to do the work of change. But, you know, if we're running this gigantic deficit, I think 300,000, I think 100,000 a year is outrageous. And it unfortunately starts with the residents who need to learn and be compliant with what's recyclable and what's not. What I would like to know is if pot A can no longer be recycling, but goes into the trash, what does it do to our trash costs? Because somehow there's got to be a balance here between the recycling and the trash, and we need to be producing less trash.
Right.
So I hate to, sorry, I'm here. I'm sorry I'm late. I got distracted.
No worries. Jumped right into the heart of the discussion, so thank you. Yeah, and I guess so those are all potential things that we could maybe do if there's appetite for it.
Lisa is very interested.
Okay.
She's our point of.
Can I ask who Lisa is?
Oh, Lisa Borowski is the commissioner for Ward 4.
Okay.
Which is more towards Darby Paoli Road, Malin Road. It's sort of the southern, southwestern, I don't know, corner of the township. She was the president. She's now the vice president. She's one really good cookie.
She's been a strong advocate for our programs as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I would recommend the township meetings are in person now, but I would recommend that EAC at least either watch them on Monday nights, second and fourth Monday, or review the tape the next day, because it's amazing what you learn by being there. I've gone for 22 years like an idiot, but I've learned a lot.
You have all of our institutional knowledge, we know.
That's
Glad
right.
to have you, Sarah.
Because I don't have a social life.
Nobody has a social life right now.
No, that's true.
There's the truth.
So why don't we segue? Thank you very much for that discussion. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about the SALDO regulations and the energy consultant? We touched on the energy stuff a few minutes ago, but if you could give us a recap, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, the plan, the whole process got turned upside down when in early March, like maybe the 7th or 8th, Practical Energy Solutions was ready to work with the stakeholders. And all of a sudden, our main person is also the mayor of Westchester. And they had received the news that there was going to be a close down and meetings in public. And they informed the township. So it was done by a Zoom call. So then every COVID was there, the pandemic was there, we couldn't hold meetings, we couldn't do anything. So we've turned it sort of upside down. Normally you get all the grassroots information and then you present the report. And that's not going to happen anytime soon, meaning the pandemic being over, at least in my opinion. So they've developed the report, which is, Robin and I talked to Diane today about this particular topic, and she's in the very final stages of producing this report. Well, in the process of my going to commissioner meetings, I learned in July that the property that was Valley Forge's, that was sold to Eastern, has now got an agreement of sale to Concordia Developers. They're based in Bethesda, Maryland. They want to put 20 houses on, Colleen, you know the area, it's catty corner to Christina's. They want to put in 20 houses.
Right.
Forget the parking lot, forget the 14 little brick houses that Valley Forge had. They're all gone. They have to rezone it because it's A1, which is 1 acre lots, or PI, which is planned institutional. And they need a zoning change to go to A2, which are half acre lots. So Diane had been asking me if Diane is Practical Energy Solutions, also the mayor. Were there any developments coming up that we could recommend, not an ordinance, but recommend certain energy conservation concepts to be incorporated in a development? So I got a hold of Diane and we talked about it, and they have proposed a change. So to be recommended to the developer for energy conservation. Some of the very simple stuff is 17 inches of insulation below the ceiling, LED bulbs, Energy Star appliances, consider pervious driveways. That's a little extreme. Really extreme is orient them toward, so they're appropriate for solar. Just a whole bunch of concepts. So Diane and PES wrote up a whole thing. And I had an opening and talked to Jack Larkin and Steve Morsini before the meeting 2 meetings ago. And they went, oh, yeah, well, okay. So we came on a little stronger and we basically got closed down. So what Jack said, and when he and I were talking face to face, was, well, I want EAC in on this. And I went, okay, I'll present it to the EAC, the concept. because Diane, the mayor, Practical Energy Solutions, is the mayor. She's really gotten to know the inside of the politics of townships or boroughs. And what she said today was it was a Zoom call between Robin and Diane and myself, was we should not just go, oh, okay, but to basically tell the township, sell the township in wanting to suggest these things to the developer, because it makes a big difference to the owner who buys the property. It increases the value of the property. It raises the price of the salary when they resell it. It sells the township, because look what creative Radnor is doing. And that the management and the commissioners need to be pushed a bit. So Robin and I are in the process of convincing Lisa and Jack and Bill White, and I understand they really have their hands full, to at least have this go to planning for incorporation in the saldo. So I don't have more details of it than that. Once we get it in a really written form, I will circulate it to EAC. I think it's I'm opinionated and I'm an advocate. I think it's a perfect opportunity to ooch the township into being more proactive. I have since learned that Dodo Hamilton's property is going to be developed with 19 houses. And any of you who may have known Smithfield, which is on South Ithan Avenue, that's being broken up and they're developing 8 houses there. So it's not like this is a single case. This is our opportunity to guide the township into being more proactive for energy conservation. And they passed the resolution, so they really should put some meat behind it.
Right.
So that's the basis of it. I will keep you advised. What Robin's and my next step is to write something out, have Diane vet it, then we're going to ask for a Zoom meeting with Jack and Lisa and Bill White, maybe even Steve Norsini.
So if they rezone, they don't have to go to the planning commission? Is that?
Colleen, this is Sarah's analysis, okay? I find it very interesting that of these 3 developments that are shortly to come, the Eastern Valley Forge Concordia one has to go to zoning. The other 2 do not, and I'm not quite sure why, but I find it, I'm going to use the word interesting, that they've been meeting with the neighbors for months.
Right.
And the neighbors have moved in and have dictated down to the materials that the houses are going to be built from. So they're doing all this backdoor negotiating with the neighbors. So when they take it to planning,
there's no
nobody
objection
to complain. Right. It's a fait accompli.
Right.
Which I mean, if I've been doing this for 20 some years, I've never seen this before. And I don't quite understand why. I guess it's legal, but
yeah, I think because they're rezoning it from planned institutional, since it was college land, to residential.
Well, it's controversial because it's an A1 and a planned institutional to go to A2. And I can tell you quite honestly, Rich Booker and Sean Farhi are against it.
Oh, okay.
And during Monday's meeting, they have to do a public hearing for the Dodo Hamilton redone for your new guys. That's the corner of Stratford Avenue and Eagle Road. And there was a long discussion from Lisa about if the commissioners were the judge and jury, could they keep a level of decorum?
Oh.
I find that, I'm sort of scratching my head figuratively why they had this discussion. So I'm not so sure that the Dodo Hamilton project is fully vetted out, that the neighbors might not have a thing to say about it. I don't
Is that
know.
where the office buildings are on Stratford?
No. Catty corner to the office buildings where Dodo Hamilton lived.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And she's Dorrance Hamilton. It's 19 acres. She's already sold off the property a couple of years ago across the road from her on the other side of Stratford Avenue. And they built homes there, and there was not a lot of happiness for the neighbors.
Right.
But so there's a lot of, Christina could tell you about the Concordia one because I'm sure she was there.
Right
There's
there.
all the Walnut Avenue folks were
Right.
there, and they've determined what the houses are to look at, what the exterior is to look at. And I've never heard of that before. So there are 3 opportunities, and there will be more. It's a chance to get some energy conservation and some climate change mitigation begun. And Diane said today, and Robin and I supported, it's a chance for the township to toot its own horn. Look at these progressive things we're doing. So that's the story, and Jack mandated that EAC needed to be in on this. So I'm just a message carrier.
Well, thank you for bringing the message. Yeah, go ahead, Margie.
I just have a question, Sarah, that, since it's hard even getting these things through, I imagine the answer is no, but has there ever been discussion in Radnor Township of like really environmentally friendly building like cluster housing? Has that ever come up, since half-acre lots are not exactly the most environmentally friendly thing? Cluster housing is supposed to be the way to go.
My analysis is, and it's been said in commissioner meetings, Radnor doesn't like change.
Mm-hmm.
The commercial zoning came in 1968, and residential zoning came in 1974, and they've only been nibbled at around the edges.
Right.
And I've heard from vendors that working with Radnor is very, very, very difficult.
Sarah, do you and Robin have a vision for what it would look like if we were successful here? Would it be, sort of pushing a package of simple requirements that the Planning Commission could always bring out anytime a new development is planned?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just like stormwater, just like impervious surface, just like any of the basic details. And they're not the stormwater is mandated, but the rest of them are very strong suggestions. These would actually, unless people who are buying $1 million houses don't care about energy, but Radnor should care about energy. Because I'm sure you all agree that climate change is here.
So, I totally agree. I think that makes a lot of sense, Sarah. We have in the past always kind of looked around for model legislation or model requirements that we could kind of put our own stamp on. Would that be a good first step for this group to do a little bit of research and
a lot of, I think, wait to see what Practical Energy Solutions comes up with, because they've worked in Chester County, in Delaware County, in Philadelphia. They're still doing climate change work in Philadelphia. And I think it'll be pretty comprehensive, and then we can look at it and say, I mean, it could go much further, Matt. They could, in some areas, they require all electrical appliances. They require pervious surfaces. They require that only 30% of a property can be grass. The rest of it has to be plantings. I mean, in New Hampshire, and they require these very sophisticated heat pumps, which are much cheaper to use, and it's not using natural gas. So you can go way to the end of requirements. We've stepped back. And it was interesting, Steve Norsini said to me, well, the one thing they all will require is gas to the site. But I think they're all going to be $1 million properties. And when I was talking about this Energy Star, Steve Norsini, with a little bit of a chuckle, said, well, I don't know whether Viking stoves are Energy Star or not. And I said, well, they damn well ought to be. You know, it's the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I would always use an Energy Star appliance because I'm trying to keep my electric and my gas bill down. I guess there are people who really don't care what it is. Yeah. It's almost a sociological study. But Margie, we just have to keep pushing. And Matt, maybe it's time, because you've got, all of us are newish, to the plan that the EAC came out with in 2012 that occasionally you refer to, because that was quite advanced in 2012. I know Robin was part of the EAC at that time.
I totally agree. I think now's the time for a fresh start. This seems like it could be a really good and far-reaching project if everyone agrees. I see a few heads nodding. Do we want to take an official vote on this, or just sort of assume that we'll keep an eye out and see how it shakes out with practical energy solutions?
I personally think that Sarah should be empowered on this mission to get energy efficiency standards as a requirement for either zoning or for building permits. They do it in the big cities, right? You can't build a skyscraper in Chicago unless it's LEED Gold, right? Otherwise, you just can't get a permit. You're on hold. So I think pushing this forward is fantastic.
Thanks, Sid. That's a nice feedback.
There are some, this is just for fun, there are some Viking stoves that are Energy Star. I just looked it up. Not all of them. But that's quite a funny comment that he made. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. I don't know why anybody's building anything without these, guidelines anymore. And if they're going to be $1 million homes anyway, they should, be the best that they can be.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Sarah, why, not to be contrarian, why doesn't PES talk to these developers directly, right? I mean, there are compelling cases to be made to develop in this manner. Why aren't they, are those two parties connected, and have they had the opportunity to present a case to make it energy efficient?
No, I think the answer is, Sid, because Radnor passed a resolution called Ready for 100, and I'll send a copy of it to Matt so the new people can read it. It's really our first step is for Radnor to begin to do the mitigating. I'm sure that they would if they were invited in, but Radnor needs to make the first step because we passed the resolution, and now it's really time for the commissioners to put their money where their mouth was. And I don't know whether you all know it, but we have, and Colleen knows them, we have these two wonderful seniors at Radnor High School who were almost moving faster than we were. And the Sierra Club, who has facilitating this initiative of Ready for 100 all over the United States, mentored those two girls, and they succeeded in having the Radnor School District passed a resolution for Ready for 100, which is 100% alternative energy by 2035 and heat and electricity by 2050. And so they are right behind us, and they're, even though they're on Zoom and hybrid and God knows what else, they've gotten the mothers involved, and they have a Radnor Going Greener program to teach the parents and the kids some of these energy mitigation techniques, not the least of which, as I turn off my TV that's on silent, turning off the television when you're not using, turning off the lights when you're not in the room you're in, don't taking half-hour showers. There are a whole bunch of small things that people can do, and I'll also forward that to Matt. He can forward to all of you.
Thanks.
It's bubbling up because climate change is here. It's just getting the commissioners to make a change. And as Diane said today in the conversation, they don't really like it. They don't really like to stick their necks out. And now they're totally preoccupied with COVID and money and the commercial establishments continuing to exist, which is 51% of our tax revenue comes from the commercial entities in the township. I understand they're in crisis, but that's no reason for us to step back. So we just got to keep pushing. Baby steps forward.
Baby steps. I like it. Thank you for that, Sarah. So we'll definitely keep that on the agenda and figure out how to move it forward. The next item on the agenda is just to recap what we talked about around composting last time. And Jim and I think we were both, I don't recall if you were there or not. This was back in the summer, so it was a pretty light group. We just had a community member who came on and talked about sort of her experience with composting. We kind of talked around it a little bit and said, look, for a lot of people, particularly if you're in town, it's challenging because of, kind of neighbors not liking the smell and the sights of little critters getting in it and stuff like that. But, that maybe there are opportunities in the future to find commercial services that'll take kitchen waste and compost it. That's about as far as we got. We just kind of talked around.
Well, was that Mother Compost, Matt?
Say again, Jim, I'm sorry?
Was that somebody from Mother Compost we were talking to? Or I remember Mother Compost.
It was not from the company, but I think she used Mother Compost as a service. Yep.
And we've talked about this before, especially when trash goes up, because we pay for trash by weight. And a good way to get some of that weight out of there is the compost. We've never found anybody who can actually run a composting program for the township. I don't think we have the resources for it. Mother Compost is okay, but there's little 5-gallon buckets that you have to subscribe to. But yeah, there's definitely interest in it, because we've heard about them multiple times in these meetings.
So that's about the extent of the discussion. So, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, has there been any effort to ask local restaurants to start composting before we ask residents?
That's a really good idea. No.
Because they're producing, I can't fill up a 5-gallon bucket every 2 weeks myself. And maybe a lot of families can, but to me, it's not economical for my own home to do it with the bucket. But these restaurants produce way more food waste than.
I think the issue is that they would have to pay.
Yeah.
So for the programs that, at least that I know about, it's $20 a month for them to take your compost. So to get the restaurants to do it, I doubt. Well, it certainly would help, because that's a lot of waste. But to convince them to pay somebody else to take trash away, that might be an uphill battle.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any grants or anything, but that could be part of our continued discussion if we wanted to move forward with it.
So Whole Foods, I call this SSO, right? Source Separated Organics. Whole Foods asks you to put your organics in a certain bin. What do they do with that bin of organic material that they have?
Good question to ask. I know what Moms does. They have people who raise chickens, people who have pigs, and their waste goes into big boxes. When I had chickens, I used to go every week and get a big box of the excess, when they take the leaves off kale that they don't think is perfect enough for sale. And the same with the coffee. None of that stays at Mom's. It's all reused by somebody somewhere who's got farm animals.
I think that's the key is we don't want to have a bunch of compost heaps in Radnor Township that doesn't smell great. And I don't want it in my backyard, nor should you really. But I think having a service, and I'm sure you've searched, like you said, a service that would take source separated organics and dispose of it for us in a beneficial manner. That's kind of one of the things I was starting with. I'd love to find that. I know some people that do that for municipalities. It's one of those things where the burden falls back to the consumers, but us as a group, right? So we have to do a better job, all of us, about separating organic waste from the rest of our waste. And then that would contribute. If we could create a big enough waste stream that actually it's valuable to someone, believe it or not. And then we could pay that party less for taking away our trash than our regular trash.
That's what I was going to suggest. Like if we went the restaurant angle, particularly the ones that are right in town, right now, correct me if I'm wrong, if they're throwing that waste into the regular trash, the township is paying to haul that away, and there's probably money that could be saved if we reduce the weight of that regular trash and kind of diverted that into a program, even if we had to pay a nominal amount for it.
Matt, the commercial businesses have to hire their own trash hauler.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It does not go in Radnor's trash.
Thank you, Sarah. I forgot about that.
Haverford Township was very interested in developing a composting infrastructure like Mother Compost has at Linville Orchards. And it might be really interesting for us to do a field trip at some point to go down to Linville and see their operation. Of course, Haverford Township thought that Skunk Hollow would be the perfect place. But because I found out over the years, when they were talking about putting a cell tower at Skunk Hollow, that they cannot have a commercial entity at Skunk Hollow because that land was bought with state funds.
Okay.
So that didn't work, but obviously Haverford Township had their eye in the idea of it because they saw we have a leaf composting program, but that's in-house. It's not commercial with an outdoor vendor, although if you're there enough, you see that Mayfield Gardens comes and does a lot of the final production of the mulch. They don't get any money for it. They take mulch because we produce much, much more from the leaves than the township can possibly use. So they get their fee by loaning the equipment and taking the excess mulch for their landscaping business.
Well, maybe you could do this at our Dross and that wasn't purchased with state funds. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I like it.
In the rye field, Colleen.
In the rye field that we spent $11 million on. Yeah.
Because everybody loves the cows.
Exactly.
Oh, God. Yes.
Yeah.
Cows is a good segue, actually, because cow manure, for instance, is a great sort of buffer for organic waste if you want to create a compost system or a digestion system.
Oh, yeah.
So if we can find another waste stream like that already exists and just insert our organics into it.
We got the
solution.
cow. We got the cow manure.
We got the cows.
Cows.
Plenty of that.
And we own the land, the township does, right here at Odrossan.
Yeah.
Honestly, it'd be awesome.
We should propose it and see if it flies. You never know.
I would do it. I live nearby. I'd be happy to do it. Well, that people are building $8 million homes back there. It's crazy.
I've seen them. Yeah, that's one of our field trips with the kids.
Yeah.
Look at this house you'll never live in.
All right, we are at the top of the hour. How's everyone doing for time? Can we keep going a few minutes?
I have like 5.
We've got 5 minutes, okay. All right, so really all we have left is community outreach and awareness and any new business. So I'll just open up the floor to anybody.
I saw that there's a plug recycling kind of event. Is that like mostly driven by the township itself, or do you guys ever get involved in that?
No, we often have to ask the township when they're going to do that, but they usually do a couple of those a year.
There is one on the 9th, which is next Saturday, but you have to register. You get a time when you can go. It's anything with a plug plus paper.
Yeah, I saw that. We
No
always accidentally get routed into the line as we get to the building. So we always know about them, but I just wondered what the dynamic between like the council and the township is for those type of events.
That's sponsored by the Board of Commissioners. But the recycling program seems to have been taken over by the League of Women Voters and the Radnor Conservancy. So, but they try to have 1 or 2 events of the electronic recycling because people don't like to go down county. So, but I just learned that you had to have an appointment. You have to register. So I've registered because I've got a broken printer and I can only go between 9 and 9:30 because the last time they did it, they blocked, you must live near there, Danelle, they blocked all of Ivan Avenue and Brookside, and the whole neighborhood was gridlocked. So now they have, you have to make an appointment and they only have a certain number of slots per half hour.
Any new business? We're pretty much done. I'll repeat something I said at the beginning for Sarah and Margie. I'm going to step down from the EAC in January. So I'll organize a sort of a combined November-December meeting. And you might want to think about putting somebody else up as chair, and I'll step away after that. It's been a privilege serving with everyone. Thank you very much for your wonderful ideas and support and energy and work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for all the time, Matt.
It's been a pleasure. If there's nothing else, we'll call it and let everyone go. Thanks so much. Great to meet you guys both, and we'll see you soon.
And don't forget to vote.
Don't forget to vote.
Already did. Okay.